Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics here at The Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. In one of the things that I had flagged in the last episode of Talking Politics is having a big impact on the politics of the year 2023 and beyond was that of the introduction of the concept of remote voting for migrants. In my view, this will be a game changer in the coming elections, and it is the subject of this episode of Talking Politics. So, the Election Commission of India said on December 28th that it was ready to pilot remote voting for domestic migrants through a newly devised remote electronic voting machine, RVMs, so that the voter does not have to travel to their home state or district to cast their vote. The EC has written to political parties, all the 8 national parties and around 57 state regional parties, that they will demonstrate an RVM prototype on January 16th and have asked political parties to participate in it because they are an important stakeholder in just how elections should be held in this country. And they have also said that they would want suggestions on that prototype, whether or not it works or it should be abandoned by January 31st of this month. So the process of trying to get migrant voters, domestic migrant voters, into the voting structure to make it easier for them to vote so that they don't have to travel back to their home state has been initiated. Now, this migrant voter bloc, what is the extent of the migrant vote in the country? Well, as per the 2011 census, 45.36 crore Indians, that is 37% of the population, were internal migrants. They are settled in places different from that of their registered residences. Now, the EC has been expressing concern about stagnating voter participation, electoral participation, and they said that while 67.4% of the eligible 91.2 crore Indians voted in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, about one third or close to 30 crore voters did not cast their vote. This inability to vote, the Election Commission said, due to internal migration, domestic migrants, is one of the prominent reasons to be addressed to improve voter turnout and ensure participative elections. It's all very high-minded sort of goal for the Election Commission to increase electoral participation. 30 crore people going missing from the electoral rolls in terms of exercising their franchise is a big number. It is indeed significant. So, what is the specific proposal with regard to remote voting? I mean, how do you do it? We all know, whoever has voted amongst us, is that you register to vote with the Election Commission. The local guys come. They have a sort of they kind of look around and see whether whatever information that you have put out about your residence, etc., is kosher or not. Is it okay or not? And then you're accorded a voter ID with a number, and on the day of polling, you get messages from political parties, even from the EC, on where your polling booth is going to be. You go, you check your name on the electoral rolls if it has been there, and then you go and exercise your franchise. Now, how is it that people who are not registered in a particular area will get polling booths in those areas for elections that could be happening in another state? Now, in its 2015 order on a plea seeking voting opportunities for domestic migrants, the Supreme Court directed the Election Commission to explore remote voting options. It said, technology has advanced quite a bit, so why not have a look at whether this can be done? Now, a committee of the poll panel had considered remote voting options such as proxy voting, postal ballots, internet voting, and early voting. But it did not recommend any of these methods because of various reasons. Proxy voting could be misused, postal ballots A lot of people don't like to do it, don't like to send in their votes. Early voting, there are people who change their vote at the last moment. So why deprive voters of that opportunity, a certain section of voters of that opportunity, etc. So all of this was explored, and then it was decided that it was a no-go. The EC has now come up with a prototype for a multi-constituency remote electronic voting machine for migrant voting. It is a modified version of the existing EMV model. Now, the EC says that the RVM, that's the remote voting machine, can handle multiple constituencies up to 72 from a single remote polling booth. Now, the voter will have to register online, offline for a remote voting facility within a pre-notified time with the concerned returning officer of their home constituency. Once the voter is verified and marked eligible for remote voting, a multi-constituency remote polling station will be set up in the area of their current residence. The RVMs will have the same security system and voting experience as the EVM, with the modification of an electronic ballot display with candidates and symbols instead of a fixed ballot paper sheet. So in a EVM, you have a fixed ballot paper sheet which has the name and the symbol, and then there is a button, the name, symbol, candidate name, symbol of the party, button. It's a long list, however many candidates there are, and then the voter just presses. In the remote voting machine, this will be an electronic display board. Now, when the voter scans his or her constituency card in the presence of the presiding officer at the station, their respective constituency and candidate list will appear on the RVM display. As for counting the votes, the electronic system will also count and store the votes for each candidate in a constituency, and that will be added to the final figure. Now, this move, if cleared by all political parties, will also entail some changes in the law. Among the laws and rules which would need an amendment to implement remote voting is the Representation of Peoples Act of 1950 and 1951, the Conduct of Election Rules 1961, and the Registration of Electors Rules 1960. Now, these are the three laws which will have to be amended by Parliament in order to make this remote voting a reality. Of course, the first step is Jan 16th, when political parties will go and have a look at this machine, the demonstration of that machine, and of course by July 31st, when they give in their reactions or their stand on whether or not this could be done. Basically, we've also been told, the Hindu was also told by sources, that this kind of, this RVM, this remote machine, if all political parties are on board, will be tested out on a pilot basis in the 9 upcoming assembly elections in various states. Now, the states going to polls, as I said in the last episode of Talking Politics, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Karnataka, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh. It's across the country. So it will be a good time to try out these remote voting machines. And if everything works out, all the kinks, etc., are worked out of the system, then it could also be deployed in a large way, fully, for the 2024 general elections. Obviously, this is going to change campaign styles. It's going to change the way elections are fought in this country. And therefore, there have been some strong reactions from political parties with regard to this move. Now, what are these reactions of political parties? Now, the BJP has said that it was in favor of remote voting for migrant voters as a means of deepening democracy and increasing inclusiveness in voters. And I must say, their stance could also have been helped by the fact that a lot of studies have shown that migrants living away from their home states do favor central parties over regional parties, and therefore gives an advantage to a party like the BJP. On the other big national party, the Congress, however, is not taking the same lessons from those survey results and has refused the Election Commission's invitation. In a letter, senior Congress leader Jairam Ramesh wrote to the Election Commission stating that the use of the proposed remote voting machine could, and I quote, seriously undermine the trust in the electoral system. And he urged the EC to first restore trust through transparency and via honest engagement with the opposition's concerns. Basically, they said that fears of the misuse of EVMs that opposition had registered in the past have not been systematically addressed by the Election Commission. And so, therefore, on top of that, if you want to bring in a new system of voting for domestic voters, the Congress has grave misgivings about this move. They were supported in their stance by their ally, the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, DMK member P. Wilson, who had said that the EC has no locus standi to come up with a prototype without the required amendments to current laws. So he said that before showing off the machine, the EC needs to first make sure that all the amendments that enable rolling out of this system should be done. And therefore, all of this could be then debated within Parliament, which was the sphere for it to be debated, is what his view was. The Communist parties, the CPI and the CPIM, have said that while they will be going to the demonstration of the remote EVMs hosted by the EC on January 16th, they will clarify their stance on the issue by January 31st, which is the last date set by the EC, wherein the political parties could write in and say what they thought of the whole idea. So, as I said before, the EC has already said via sources that this could be tried out once all the enabling provisions were in place. This could be rolled out on a pilot project, and it could well be in place by the 2024 general elections. Now, till now, we have been talking about how of the remote voting idea. What is the machine going to look like? How are you going to get registered? How is the verification going to be done, etc., etc. But its impact, apart from the technology, the technological ways in which this will change the way we vote, will be on the nature of political engagement across the country. I'll try and put it in the show notes, an interview that I did with political scientist Ashwini Kumar, who also was consulted by the EC when coming up with this idea of remote voting for internal migrants. I'll try and put it in the show notes. You can look it up. It is a more detailed kind of version of just how he sees the way in which political engagement will change once this move comes into force. Now, basically, this move is being pushed to, increase the overall percentage of voting, because in urban clusters, especially, voting has been historically low. Now, parties will have to accommodate, as a result of all of this, if this comes to pass, they will have to accommodate migrants in organizational structures, and therefore the challenges for regional parties will abound, as not only will they have to have an organizational presence in states other than where they are located, but also to counter the appeal of national parties among people who are registered as voters in their home states but are living in other states. They will have to reach out on issues. For example, it could be that migrants living outside of a state may have less of a reason to support a regional party vis-a-vis a national one, even in their home states, because of a greater variety of exposure to different political formations. Again, I'm referring to certain studies that have come out which show that migrants living outside of their home states do tend to prefer central parties and over regional parties. Now, this could also have an impact on whether programmatic welfare policies will get greater weightage vis-a-vis identity politics. Identity politics, Sons of the Soil movement, locals asking for jobs in the place where they are, all of those things could be turned on their heads if my domestic migrants are also included in voting for their home states, where they will feel that identity politics will also works another way. If there is a regional party which is extremely strong in their home state saying that no, only locals should be given jobs, there'll be two members of one family who would be living outside of that state, who will say, look, we are also living in a state which is hosting us, which has given us employment. And this kind of exclusionary sort of thing based on identity politics is not something we agree with. We would rather go with a party which is giving us, say, free electricity or subsidies, etc., in terms of cooking gas or education, etc. And they might vote on that basis, would say that programmatic welfare policies which touch everybody is better than this very sectional sort of appeal. It could happen, or it could happen the other way as well. But it will definitely be a state of flux in terms of issues and the way political parties need to engage, especially regional parties need to engage with people, need to engage with the electorate. Now, in all, remote voting is not going to be an easy thing to accomplish. And like all big changes, while we could account for some of the impact of this change that this change will have, much of the consequences could be unintended as far as political parties and the public discourse is concerned. Therefore, we will be returning to this topic once these changes are implemented, if they are. But for today, this is all I have for you. I hope this clarified a lot of confusion over this issue. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.